This is Apropos. Political controversies, wars and tariffs may be threatening to overshadow the pomp and the pageantry, but the British government will be hoping that multi-billion-dollar tech deals will show that the transatlantic bond remains strong despite differences over Ukraine, the Middle East and the future of the Western alliance. The UK is rolling out the red carpet in a bid to woo the mercurial Donald Trump, who's just touched down in London. With more on what to expect, here's France 24's Benedict Pavio.
President Trump has arrived in the United Kingdom for a second state visit that is unprecedented. Also unprecedented is the level of security. That would be true for any American president. Now, given the murder of Charlie Kirk, the right-wing activist, this is even more heightened. So you've got drones in the air, you've got sniffer dogs, you've got snipers up on roofs. This is really being taken extremely to a very, very high level, the highest since the coronation. So the first day will be spent inside for the president, the US president and his wife Melania. He will be greeted by the Prince and Princess of Wales, then by the King and the Queen, then there'll be a luncheon, and then there will be a royal banquet. And that will be very interesting to see what speeches both leaders make. Then on the second day, it will be actually down to business, and it will be a press conference, first a bilateral meeting with the British Prime Minister, then it will be a press conference with the UK, British media and international media, and then we expect some announcements also of some big tech deals, amongst other things, probably also science, artificial intelligence, billions of pounds of investment in the United Kingdom. But the problem is that there may be some very worrying questions for both leaders. Of course, Peter Mandelson, the former now British ambassador to the US, was sacked last week by the Prime Minister because of his links to the convicted sexual predator Jeffrey Epstein. And of course, President Trump has done everything in his power to distance himself from that same Jeffrey Epstein. So could there be some embarrassing moments, and is that the danger zone during those 2 days?
Benedict Pavia reporting there from Windsor. Well, for more, we're joined by Peter Westmacott, a former British ambassador to the US and distinguished fellow at the Atlantic Council. Thanks so much, Peter, for being with us on the programme. Firstly, what has the mood been like in London ahead of this state visit?
And I should add, a former British ambassador to France. What is the mood in London? Well, I think there is a sense of expectation that this is an important visit. It's not as long as our state visits often are. It's only slightly less than 48 hours. And as your correspondent was saying, it's unprecedented for a president of the United States to have a second state visit. It was clearly something that Donald Trump wanted. And when Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, went to see him in February in the White House, he brandished a letter from the King inviting him to pay another visit to the UK, which clearly gave Donald Trump a great deal of pleasure. So this is about pageantry and protocol and about making Donald Trump feel special, of course. Lots of security for the reasons that we all know, which were highlighted by your correspondent. But I think there's also going to be some substance discussed. The headlines are a little bit about deals for AI and Google investing £10 billion in DeepMind and some other technology and perhaps aerospace and defense deals. But there's a lot of foreign policy, which is important and at stake too. They need to talk about Ukraine and Russia. They probably will need to talk about the Middle East, horrific pictures today there, and trade policy, tariffs, and with a free trade, with the international rules-based order, if you like, which the rest of us have spent so much time putting together since the Second World War, and which Donald Trump is not particularly attached to. So lots of substance, as well as the pageantry and protocol.
And Peter, much, of course, being made of the fact that Donald Trump is the first elected leader ever to be invited for a second state visit to the UK. Based on your own experience as a former ambassador, do you think overall it's going to be a success?
Well, I would hope so, obviously, because a lot of people have put a huge amount of effort and money has been spent on trying to make sure that it's a success. A lot of homework, a lot of prep, a lot of briefing, a lot of conversations between the White House and 10 Downing Street, And look at Windsor Castle there in your pictures, which is a very special place, close to the hearts of members of the royal family. So, why would it not be a success? Donald Trump wants to be made to feel special, and he loves the relationship that he has with the royal family. There will be military parades, there will be protocol, there will be carriage rides, not through the streets of London, but, in the grounds of Windsor Castle. I think there's every reason why this should give him a great deal of pleasure. And so what the British government will be hoping is that this encourages him not only to feel more positive about the relationship with the United Kingdom, but also listens to some of the message which Keir Starmer will be delivering, not only on behalf of the United Kingdom, but also on behalf of our European partners as well, because it's not just the UK that cares about Ukraine and the Middle East and how to manage relations with China and what about free trade and so on. It's also many other very important European countries as well.
And also observers pointing out, though, that the shadow of Jeffrey Epstein is hanging over this visit, coming as it does so soon after the UK's ambassador in Washington was forced to resign last week. Is this going to be something that the two leaders are forced to address?
Well, journalists might ask some questions when the President and the Prime Minister give their shared press conference after their talks at Chequers. But I don't think between them they will feel there's any need to discuss that. This was an issue which was very largely about British domestic security processes, vetting. Was this the right person? Were mistakes made? Did somebody not come clean about the full extent of Lord Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? I don't know all the details, but I think from the White House's point of view, they were very happy to have Peter Mandelson there for as long as he stayed. He got on well. He did a good job. I think he was highly appreciated by Donald Trump. The British government chose to withdraw him. He didn't resign, actually. He was fired very formally. And I think from the White House's point of view, well, that's the British government's domestic business, so that's up to them. And what they will want to see is that before too long, the British government chooses somebody else to represent them in the United States of America who is up to the job. And, I have every hope that the UK government is going to do just that.
Yeah, there are opportunities here for Keir Starmer, as you say. Will he succeed, do you think, in reducing tariffs on British imports to the US, or perhaps in persuading Donald Trump to impose further sanctions on Russia?
Well, those are great questions. I think on the first point, the UK at the moment has slightly lower tariffs applied to its exports to the United States than other European countries, and indeed many of America's other partners. But some of it is still subject to negotiation. There's a good deal on aerospace, there's something on automotive, but steel and aluminium and some other products still have to be negotiated. And although the UK feels that it's got a better status, a better deal than other countries have, it's still worse than the freer trade arrangements, not free, but freer trade that we had before Donald Trump began his tariff wars. So I'm sure that on that issue, not least because the United Kingdom is not in a very strong position economically, we haven't got much growth, we've got rising inflation, unemployment is rising, and so on, many similar problems to what there are in France. I think on those issues, the Prime Minister will want to make some progress. And I'm very sure that he will want to try to persuade Donald Trump to understand that standing up with Ukraine against Russian aggression, against the invasion of Ukraine, is not just about asking the United States to look after Europe's security. This is also about the security of the United States and of the planet more widely. Look at all that security in the North Atlantic around the coasts of Britain and of France and indeed Germany. There are offensive Russian operations there, submarines, aircraft, all sorts of other things, missile tests, which are going on around the world, which threaten America's security. We're not just suggesting that Trump should look after European security. We are suggesting that Trump should do more to look after America's security, which is also threatened by Putin's bad behavior.
Peter, on a personal level, what kind of relationship does Donald Trump have with King Charles? We'll be seeing them together over the next couple of days. He described him earlier as a friend. They seemingly also write letters to one another.
I don't know about writing letters. The King is a great letter writer. I know that from the past. They know each other. Do they know each other that well? Of course, Donald Trump has paid a state visit before, but that was when the Queen was still alive. And the King, who was then the Prince of Wales, of course, played a significant part in that visit. And he has seen Donald Trump when he's visited the UK on other occasions. So I would say that they know each other. Certainly President Trump feels that the King is a good friend of his. That's a good start. What we want is to see that relationship close. We want to see the president feel that he is properly entertained, which of course he will be, by the King and the other members of the royal family. But beyond that, I can't tell you exactly the details of what sort of relationship they have. But there's clearly no problem there. And I think they will get on just fine.
We'll see how it plays out. Peter, thanks so much for being with us this evening. We'll have to leave it there for now. That is Peter Westmacott, a former British ambassador to the US, France and Turkey, and a distinguished fellow at the Atlantic Council. Thank you.